don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff, because you never want to miss a minute of what I talk about here on Speechless. But that was an executive order Trump signed. Trump has signed a record number of executive orders this week. And so I want to make sure that I kind of lay out a general idea of what some of the best ones are, at least I can help categorize it so you can understand what actually has he done. Because as Donald Trump said on the campaign trail, and as he is now proving, he said two things. First, he said words are words. Actions are what matter. He said that multiple times, if not some level of a version of that. But he also said, promises made, promises kept. And that was coming from the last administration. But he's truly even showing that already in this administration. And that's what we see. And I want to start off with something that I think is great. So right here, if you take a look, this actually is from, you can see this is from C-SPAN. I believe this shows, yeah, this is him. This is Donald Trump at the Capital One Arena after his inauguration, signing executive orders. I think this is really important to watch some of. Let's watch a little bit of this.
The second item, President Trump, is a regulatory freeze, as you announced in your speech, preventing bureaucrats from issuing any more regulations until we have full control of this, the government and this administration.
That's a regulatory freeze. And so the reason why I want to point this out, so here are some of what he signed on the stage. These are only some of what he signed in total. This is some of what he signed on the stage. He signed a rescission of 78 Biden-era executive orders. He signed federal workers must return to full-time in-person work immediately. He signed a directive to address the cost of living crisis. He signed a withdrawal from the Paris Climate Treaty. He signed a directive to restore free speech and eliminate government censorship. Now, here's what is happening, and this is why there's a level of political genius to this move, because it is not precedented that a president goes and does executive, like especially this many, his first week executive signings in public like this. This is pretty uncommon. More than uncommon. I don't know if it's ever happened in American history. He just said something. I want to make sure you guys hear that too, because after he does this, he says something that's really important. That's also going to be a main theme of the show. So he said, he has this one and he says this.
Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so.
Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so. It's great. It's great. And the reason why it is so great is because not only is it unprecedented, but he does it in front of the public. And the reason why that's important is because Donald Trump is getting up there signing things repealing Biden era orders, putting federal workers back to work, making them go, back into work, directing a restoration of free speech and eliminating government censorship, all these kinds of things, addressing the cost of living crisis, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Treaty, all these things that he promised he was going to do on the campaign trail, he is now doing on day one, where he said, I will only be a dictator on day one. You guys probably saw that clip. The left went crazy about it. It was amazing marketing for him. But the point being is he does this in front of the crowd, because here's what he's saying. Here's the message this sends, is that this is for you, the American people. I got elected. I promised you things, and now I am giving it to you. And I'm going to let you be there. And then this also has the second fold important meaning of, hey guys, we're going to have a transparent government once again. We are going to have a transparent government once again. And that's how you get to things like this, what I consider a really important moment. So for 47 minutes, that's how long this clip is. For 47 minutes, Donald Trump goes and does, like, basically, so he signs these.
Nice to see you again.
I'm going to mute this. I just want to let it play for a little bit. We'll get to some other parts of it, but he signs these, and this is a lot of others. This is still on day one. He signs all these executive orders, and for 47, 48 minutes, while he's signing them, also is answering questions from the press. What? Restoring transparency to government is exactly what Donald Trump is doing. And like him or hate him, like the policies that he's signing, all that kind of stuff, like, you have to admit it is nice. Like, he's answering like every question that's being asked of him. He's answering questions. Biden could not physically do this. This is something Biden would not physically be able to do, and Donald Trump is doing it, and it's beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that Trump actually signed. So we'll start off with the first category, and this isn't necessarily a comprehensive list, but these are important things that he is signing into law. And I'm going to try to go through these pretty quickly because you might have already heard of some of them, and I don't want to bore you or anything, but we'll talk about them pretty quick. Also, let me know in the comments what you guys think. What is the most important thing that he signed within the last few days? Let's start with this. So category, he signed a bunch regarding immigration. Of course, biggest promise, biggest thing on people's mind. Everybody cares about immigration. Trump declares a national emergency at the Mexican border. He reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy. And one of his boldest moves is an attempt, which he did sign, but it's going to be challenged, an attempt to end birthright citizenship for those born to undocumented immigrants. Now, there's a huge debate, and there's states already suing him on the birthright citizenship issue. This is the idea that anybody who is born on United States soil is automatically a United States citizen. And there's interesting arguments on both sides, and I'm going to cover them in a later show because I could spend an entire hour alone talking about birthright citizenship. That's a lot with immigration. And in fact, I'm going to talk more about immigration, what we're seeing so far, but preview, everybody. Immigration numbers are already down. Or illegal attempts at crossing are already down at the southern border. People know not to come. People know they're not to come. But the second kind of area that we're going to talk about is energy and environment executive orders. Trump declared a national energy emergency, ordering expedited, deregulated drilling as he repeatedly vowed to drill, baby, drill. Drill, baby, drill. That's what we got. But then he also paused offshore wind leasing in federal waters. And he also signed an order withdrawing the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. But that's, to be clear, it takes a full year to fully withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement, but it's still a good start. Then we move on. And Trump, another thing with energy is that Trump revoked a 2021 Biden executive order that set the goal for 50% of United States vehicle sales to be electric by 2030. No more are we focusing significantly on electric vehicle sales. We finally can actually just focus on perfecting the technology before forcing it down the throats of Americans. And then we get to our third category here, the executive orders that Trump signed targeting the DEI and transgender ideology. Now, these to me are some of the most important things that I care about a lot. But Trump established Monday that, quote, it is the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female, on official documents. Perfect. Perfect. You can't be a third gender. You can't be a made up gender, something that doesn't actually exist. No. You are as you were born, male or female. He said, quote, these sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality. Absolutely. That's unequivocally true. He also rescinded a Biden administration provision that allowed transgender people to serve in the military. Now, Trump did not immediately ban trans military personnel from serving as he did under his first administration, but he paved the path to revive the ban, and hopefully he does. And for anybody out there that's like, well, I don't care whether or not they believe they're a he, she, or a she, he, or whatever, they should just be allowed to serve their country, yada, yada, yada. Well, I have news for you. And here's Rob Smith, who used to be a contributor for Turning Point. I don't know what he is anymore. He's an influencer of a kind and former military member, explaining a little bit more as to why it is important that trans members not be allowed in combat. And he even says they're physically not combat ready. Here's why.
So President Trump said that he is going to ban transgender people from the United States military, and the TQ left is all up in arms about this. So I'm going to give you a couple of facts that a lot of people do not know about trans in the military. Number one, every single transgender person that is in the United States military is non-combat deployable. What that means is that they cannot deploy to a combat theater. Why is that? Because of their constant heavy medicalization. Nobody that requires that much constant medical attention can be deployed to a combat theater. Now, you've got transgender people that are on hormones that have the surgery. You've got the female to male transgenders that are on testosterone, like all of that stuff. You can't deploy to a combat theater with that constant need for medicalization. Number two, the vast majority majority of trans people that get into the military medically separate. What that means is that they medically separate because of that transgender identity. A lot of them are separating to the tune of 70 to 80%, if not more, disability. What that means is that they get health care for the transgender medical issues in perpetuity through the VA, which is funded by who? The United States taxpayer. Maybe that's something that Doge can look at. And number three, the vast majority of transgender people, number one, they have something called gender dysphoria. That is a mental thing that is on, it used to be on one of the lists of things that you literally cannot enter the military as having. There are people that can't enter the military for all sorts of medical reasons. You can't even get to the United States military if you have flat feet, all right? I had to get a waiver for my flat feet when I got into the military, right? So those are things that a lot of people do not realize about transgender people in the military. And one more thing that I'm going to put in is that a lot of these people, like I said, that medically separate and that get healthcare from the VA in perpetuity means that the VA is on the hook for these people medically for the rest of their lives. This is to the tune of tens of millions of dollars every year from the United States taxpayer. These are things that people do not realize when you talk about trans people in the military, because a lot of people do not have the military experience and cannot talk to these issues in the ways that they need to be able to. So I think that our incoming Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is going to do something about this. And I know, and I have a lot of faith that all of our elected Republican officials will be able to speak to these things eloquently and will be able to make the case for enacting President Trump's agenda when the inevitable pushback comes from the left, and it will come.
So if nothing else, it is an absolute burden on the taxpayer, along with the fact that they're not combat ready, as he said. So no, we should not have transgenders in the military. Further, in our crusade against woke culture, another thing, I'll bring back the B-roll here. Another thing, in our crusade against woke culture, Trump ordered the dismantling of government DEI and diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives within, I think it was 60 days. In a Tuesday order, Trump specifically directed the FAA to, quote, immediately return to non-discriminatory, merit-based hiring as required by law and rescind DEI initiatives. Now, this might sound all good and dandy, but the thing is that while it is being ordered of them that they not take part in these DEI initiatives, there are organizations that already are trying to safeguard themselves, one of which is the ATF. The ATF is attempting to circumvent President Trump's executive orders to crush racist DEI programs. To hide its DEI, they quietly changed their chief diversity officer's title to just senior executive. Perfect example you could see right here, chief diversity officer, and now senior executive. So we won't be unemploying them or even changing their job necessarily, simply changing the title. Hopefully Trump truly roots all of this out and we don't succumb to anything like that. I don't know how you totally solve that problem, but I'm sure our president will figure out a way. Further, targeting federal bureaucracies other than just the ATF, he ordered a hiring freeze on government positions. Good, especially with the idea of Doge coming in, which was another already challenged executive order. Maybe we'll actually root out some of our waste. He also reinstated his first-term Schedule F executive order, which could make it easier to fire civil servants deemed, quote, disloyal to America. Then comes a really controversial topic, and that's the January 6th pardons and other clemency actions. So pardons are quite a controversial topic because it's somebody who has in some way committed a crime, and you're saying it's okay. You're basically forgiven. Many of you probably knew that, but it's important to restate. A commutation is somebody who said, who it's not admitting that they didn't do anything wrong or any type of, like, basically pardons take it entirely off their record. Commutations don't do that. It just means that whatever the sentence was, that's wiped away. But you're still on the hook for wrongdoing of some kind. So Donald Trump pardoned about 1,500 of January 6 defendants charged with participating in the Capitol riot, of course, that we know on January 6th. This has caused quite a lot of flack, of course, from the left, to which I'd say, first, sit down. It's our turn. I don't need to hear you whine that, oh my God, he pardoned 1,500 of these violent insurrectionists. First off, not nearly that many were actually violent. But also, in the last few months, including the day of Trump's inauguration, Biden's had some pretty questionable commutations and pardons. He commuted sentences, and when I say commuted, he just got people off death row and put them to life sentences for a Chinese Communist Party spy, multiple, child predators, murderers, while also pardoning his own son, his brother, Anthony Fauci, the entire January 6th committee, and plenty others who we were told did nothing wrong. Well, if these people did nothing wrong, if Hunter Biden is truly the smartest man you ever knew, if Anthony Fauci is truly this hero that deserves the Presidential Medal of Freedom, if the January 6th committee did their jobs to a T perfectly and without any level of bias, then why do they need a pardon if they did nothing wrong? So I don't want to hear any lefty or even moderate complaint about pardons for the truly unjust sentences for what are political prisoners. And to be clear, I'm not saying that some J6ers didn't do anything wrong. I'm not saying that. Assaulting a police officer is wrong, even if what that police officer is doing is unjust. You should not assault an officer of the law. There are other ways to resolve that situation. However, when we had verifiable federal bureaucrats instigating and inciting and encouraging a riot, what Donald Trump is saying by basically he pardoned or commuted the sentence of every J6er. What he's saying is important, because what he would say if he just picked and choose like it was floated around, if he just picked and choose, what he'd be saying then is, oh, well, some people did something wrong, others didn't, and so like we need to free some of them because like blah blah blah. No, what he's saying by pardoning everybody is, hey, we were victims of political warfare. This was absolutely a setup, and we're putting it behind us. The way I see it, Donald Trump pardoning or commuting the sentence of everyone involved with J6 is not any different than Biden pardoning every member of the J6 committee. Because activist judges targeted and unjustly charged and sentenced, well, they weren't necessarily the people charging, but our justice system unnecessarily, unjustly targeted, charged, and sentenced further than what the law requires or asks for, simply because these people were aligned with Trump. That is what happened. And so what Donald Trump is saying is, you guys had my back, I'm going to have yours. It's not the first time he's done that. This is another example of when he did that, is when he announced Tuesday that he signed a full and unconditional pardon for Ross Ulbricht, the creator of the unlawful Silk Road marketplace, who was sentenced to life in prison in 2015. Now, here's the thing: is Silk Road is like basically a dark web website where it's like the black market, essentially. Big things that he was charged for related to the fact that people bought drugs on his platform and then ultimately died from it. Morally, I am 100% against Ross Ulbricht. He was serving like a major 2 life sentences or something like that, which might have been actually worthy for his sentence. Personally, I would have actually no problem with Ross Ulbricht being locked up. However, there are a lot of people that were either pardoned or commuted by Biden that were 10 times worse. And secondly, this was a promise that Trump had made to libertarians while on the campaign trail. Another instance of Donald Trump saying, I'm going to make you a promise. You guys have my back and I'll have yours. Libertarians helped Donald Trump get elected. And so he had their back by doing what he promised them. And the other thing that I find really weird is that there's a lot of lefties on the internet that are getting really mad about Ross Ulbricht's his pardon. Like, and it's just because they're mad about what anything Trump does. They're disingenuous for real. But it's ironic, and you know they're disingenuous by the fact that these are the same people that are like, oh, let's give free heroin to people in Portland, Oregon, or like let them go to these houses to do their heroin here. We're going to give them the needles, blah, blah, blah. All these people that are super pro legalization and decriminalization of open drug use recreationally. All these, a lot of lefties who are very for like almost a libertarian stance on a lot of that kind of stuff. Ross Ulbricht was charged with doing just that. With like pushing the same kind of an agenda. And you guys are mad about his pardoning? It's kind of a cognitively dissonance unless you admit that you're just mad about anything Trump does because you don't like Trump. But to further the executive orders, which I know this is taking even longer than I anticipated, but it's because the man is doing so much already. He's doing more in a week than Biden did in 4 years. But he also had health executive orders regarding the WHO, COVID, and drug costs. Trump signed an executive order pulling the United States from the WHO, a process he started doing during his first term, saying, quote, due to the organization's mishandling of COVID and other global health crises, its failure to adopt urgently needed reforms, and its ability to demonstrate independence from the inappropriate political influence of WHO member states. That's the reason why we're pulling. Good, honestly. Especially during COVID, we saw it exposed a lot of the corruption within the WHO. But then the Trump admin on Wednesday waived requirements that green card applicants be vaccinated against COVID-19, which I find fascinating, once again, because the lefties are mad about this too. But he's making immigration easier, everybody. Green card applicants don't need to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Then there was just more executive orders. Here's more that are just kind of don't really fall within a specific category, but are important to note. He suspended the TikTok ban for 75 days. There are people currently, he gave a list of like what would have to happen for it to not be banned. And there's Americans that are looking to purchase it, like that Mr. Beast YouTuber guy. He declared that federal buildings should, quote, respect regional, traditional, and classical architectural heritage to, quote, beautify public spaces and ennoble the United States. Love it. Restore like respect of our government institutions. Let's get back to the Greco-Roman kind of architecture that we got. He redesignated the Houthi rebels in Yemen as a terrorist organization. Awesome. He revoked security clearances for Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, and former intelligence officials who signed the letter discrediting the Hunter Biden laptop story. Perfect. Renamed the Denali to Mount McKinley and the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. It's the Gulf of America, everybody. We love it. It's amazing. It's in America. Perfect. To which, if you watch my shorts, you also saw that Hillary chuckled at that during his inaugural speech. And if you guys don't watch my shorts, you should go like, subscribe, share, and comment. But that is a short summary of just all President Trump has done through executive orders and different pardons, commutations, proclamations just this week. It is only week 1, everybody. And those are things Donald Trump has done. What do you guys think about him? Let me know in the comments. Let's go. God bless you. God bless America. God bless President Trump. And thank you so much for tuning in this week to Speechless.